from iStampin.com. Thank you for joining me today. Today I'm going to be showing you this super cute fall card. I saw this on the Stampin' Up! Blog and I was just like, wow, how did they do that? I just thought that was so cool, the way they did this watercolor feature with the feathers, and then this Hello Fall is gold embossed. So I thought that y'all would really like to see how it's made as well. So today I'm going to be using a couple of stamp sets, and these are from the holiday catalog that came out in August. So I'm going to be using the 4 feathers, and I'm going to be using the matching framelit from the feathers framelit, and you can get those 2 items together and save 15% as a bundle. And then I'm going to be using the Hello Fall from For All Things. And then you can kind of see like a faint little splatter background. The stamp set that I used, it is retired, but a great alternative would be Gorgeous Grunge. And as we get closer to that, I'll show you how to do all that. And then for the colors today, these are going to be the ink colors that I chose. I'm using Tangelo Twist, Crumb Cake. I'm using Crumb Cake for the little splatters in the background. I'm using Old Olive and Hello Honey, which is a new in color, as well as Tangelo Twist. So I'm using 2 new in colors and then 2 colors that we've had around for a while. So those are the products that I'll be using, as well as some others. So let's get started. The first thing you will need to do is to get some watercolor paper, because we're going to be misting the ink before we put it onto the watercolor paper. So for the card base, I'm using the Crumb Cake Cut and Ready card bases. I love these. It comes 20 to a pack. How many? 20, yes. It comes 20 to a pack, and the nice thing is they're already scored. So you just fold them, and you can use them landscape or portrait, whichever way you prefer. So that's going to be my card base. And then I have cut a piece of watercolor paper to a 1/4 inch smaller than the card base. So this is going to measure 4 by 5.5. And then you're also going to need a little scrap of watercolor paper, because here, this middle feather, I'm going to use the feather framelit, and I'm going to die cut that, okay? So while I was making this card, I had a few mess ups. So I'm going to tell y'all what I learned, and hopefully that this card will look better than the sample, because there's issues with that sample that I'm hoping that I've learned. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do is, because we're going to be using, I'm going to be using my Stamp-A-Majig to get the placement of the feathers as perfect as I can get. So I've got my Stamp-A-Majig, I've got the carrier sheet and the tools. So I'm going to put that off to the side. But first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take some repositionable mono adhesive, and I'm going to put it down here so this sticks, so that it does not move as I'm changing the stamps and things like that. So I'm going to put that right here, get that lined up. And this particular card, this is where the grid paper is vital, at least for me. So I love our grid paper. It's very helpful in terms of, not only does it keep my surface clean, it's helping me line up. Okay, so I've got my feather on the block, and I'll tell you as I go along. Okay, so first things first, what we're going to do is, as you can see, the feathers are kind of up towards the top. So we have a little bit more down here. Whoops, I'm sorry. The feathers are up here, like closer to the 1/4 of the top of the card. So that's how I'm going to position this first feather. And what I'm doing is I'm using these lines on either side of the feather, and I'll get a little bit closer. There we go. I'm using these lines to make sure that my feather is straight. Now the other thing that I need to do, which I did not do on this card, is I need to make sure that the feathers are centered on the card. As you can see, the feathers are closer to the right than they are to the left. So I was not paying attention to that when I made that card. So now I'm paying attention to that, and it looks like that's pretty centered onto the card. All right, so I'm gonna put my tool right there. And the first color I'm going to use is Hello Honey. So let me get my ink pad. Okay, I've got the feather inked up, and now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take our Stampin' Spritzer and I'm going to mist. I'm gonna do this off camera because I don't wanna get this area wet, but I'm just gonna mist it once. And I'm going to press down, and I'm gonna keep my hand on this tool. I'm not gonna lift it up until I'm sure that I'm happy with the impression. Okay, great. So that's what I want. Okay, now y'all can kind of see this. Because the block is wet, I've also learned this. Don't take the stamp off of the block because you've positioned the stamp on your carrier sheet perfectly. I was taking my stamp off the block to dry off the wet, and then when I would put it back on, I wasn't putting it back in place and my feathers were not lined up properly. So don't remove the feather. I'm gonna stamp the other feather first before I do the green one, just so I can get placement. Okay, so I'm just gonna put the green one on the other side of this block, and I mean this feather, I don't know what I'm saying, the green one. Okay, I'm gonna get my Tangelo twist, ink it up again. Okay, and I'm gonna spritz it again. Perfect. All right, so there we go. So I'm gonna let that dry just for a second before I go put it through the Big Shot. Okay, so let's see how it is. You have to be careful with this little stem. But you don't want it to rip. There we go. All right, and so there's the feather. And here you can kind of see that it got a little smeared, but I think that kind of gives it that watercolor look that you're looking for, so I think that's okay. All right, so let me put those items off to the side. Okay, so I'm gonna use this as my placement so I can position where I want the Old Olive feather to go. So I'm going to put that about there, so I can remove this now and remove that feather. Okay, and just make sure that my feather is lined up. I'm using the lines on either side. Looks good. Let me get Old Olive out. Ink that up. Okay, and then I'm going to spritz it off camera again. Put my tool there, remove that, the carrier sheet, make sure my stamp's going in the right way, and then I'm gonna press down and up. Perfect. I love the Stampin' Majig. If I tried to eyeball that, it would not happen. I would be throwing a ton of paper away. This saves so much time. So that's a great tool. Okay, so we're going just to put this right there, like so. And I'm going to use glue dots for that. Right. Now what we're going to do next is we're going to emboss Hello Fall down here at the bottom. So I'm using my embossing buddy. So I'm going to use my Stampin' Majig again, and I'm going to get this lined up right where I want it and use the T-square and put that there. And now I'm going to ink up Hello Fall in Versamark. And Versamark, if you aren't familiar with it, is a clear sticky ink that is perfect for heat embossing. Okay, so let's get this out, and I've got my gold embossing powder. And I'm just going to sprinkle some on there. And by using the embossing buddy prior, that gets rid of a lot of static that the embossing powder possibly could stick to. This did not happen the first time, so we're gonna see if I can fix it. I don't know if y'all can see, the ink was still wet, so I've got embossing powder on there. I'm gonna use my paintbrush And I'm going to, there we go, good, because I don't want the feather to be embossed. I'm sure gold feathers would be beautiful, but that's not the look I'm going for on this card. Okay, so if that happens to you, just using a dry paintbrush will eliminate that. That will get rid of it. Let me get that powder off. Okay, well, good. I'm glad that wasn't a big problem. So now I just need to get my heat tool, and I'm going to warm this up. Okay, can y'all see how it's gold now? I just love gold embossing powder. Is it showing up? There we go. Isn't that pretty? Okay, next step, we are going to put the little splatters onto the cardstock. And like I said, I'm using a stamp that is no longer available, but Gorgeous Grunge is a perfect alternative. Actually, I think it's a better alternative than to the stamp that I'm using. But I'm using Crumb Cake, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to stamp off. I want this to be very subtle. So I'm using Crumb Cake, and I'm going to stamp off before I put the splatters on there. And this is just very organic. There's no rhyme or reason to this. And you can put some on over the feathers, just kind of wherever. Put one up there. Okay, that looks good. So it just kind of gives it just a little bit of texture. And then because the card using watercolor paper, when I heat embossed, it did get a little warped. It's kind of curling like right here. I am going to use Fast Fuse, and that is a perfect adhesive to use to really get a good hold. So I'm going to put this over here and get my Fast Fuse. There we go. The adhesive isn't coming out. There is a learning curve to this adhesive, but once you get a hang of it, it's super simple. Okay, then bring my card here and just line it up. And once, you want to make sure that you are happy with where you are putting your card down, because once you put the Fast Fuse on, it is not coming up. Okay. And then the last thing we're going to do is to put some gold sequins on the front. I think here, you can see I did 3 here at the bottom and then 2 here at the top. And you can use whatever glue you prefer, just glue that will dry clear. That's the most important thing. And I'm just putting them down here. Just like so. And then to finish it off, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stamp a little trio of feathers right there, and then my card will be complete. So I hope y'all liked this watercolor technique. I think it was a lot of fun. It's easy. It's not time consuming. It's just, making sure you don't want to be in a rush, because you just want to make sure that you're lining up the feathers perfectly using the Stamp-A-Majig. So I hope y'all enjoyed this. I will have an accompanying blog post with this, so you'll be able to see all the products that I used today with the measurements. And if you have any questions about any of the products that I've used today, feel free to comment below, and I will be more than happy to answer them. And if there's anything else that I can help you with, that would be, I'm more than happy to do that too. Thanks, ladies. Have a great day. Bye.